what you're calling on white America to do, Dr. Dyson, I'll interpret it for you. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Own what you've done. Own what role you've played. And in pontificating or excoriating whatever position you want to, excoriate, at least acknowledge from an historical perspective where it emanates from before decrying it later on. I had an issue with Clay Travis because he didn't do that. He
Right.
talked about how he feels now. He didn't talk about its origin. And to
Right.
me, if you're not owning it, then you have no inclination to change anything. And I think that's the point that I was trying to make when I saw what he had to say. So I ask you this simple question.
Mm-hmm.
When they don't defer to history, I'm talking about some of the white folks out there who may have this position, because certainly not most or not all feel that way, but some of them who have publicly decried DEI, who have publicly decried affirmative action and things of that nature. When you see them do this without deferring or referring to history,
Right.
do you believe that's accidental, or they're oblivious, or do you believe it's intentional?
Oh, it's quite intentional. You can't be as smart as Clay Travis is. And he talked on that podcast about all the businesses he was generating and how he sold Outkick and so on and so forth. So we know Clay is a smart guy. We
very
know
smart.
he's capable of understanding what's going on. You're denying the legitimacy of it deliberately. You're living in what Gore Vidal, the late great writer, called the United States of amnesia. You are deliberately choosing to deny the history that is ever before you. Let's look at Ron DeSantis. He is trying to ban books.
Clay Travis is not trying to deny the history that is before him. Maybe Clay Travis is distancing himself from it because it has nothing to do with him. I mean, I don't have any information that says that Clay Travis or his family has any direct connection to slavery at all. And I do agree that you can acknowledge it happened. You can acknowledge Jim Crow. You can acknowledge racism. All of those are facts, absolute facts, period, no doubt. But I don't know that he himself needs to take on the mantle of that. I don't think that's necessary. We don't know that he has any direct information about that. In fact, if anybody's going to speak up, then let Sonny Hostin talk. Since we found out that her great grandfather was a slave owner, and not only a slave owner, when they outlawed slavery in Spain, moved his family and his operation so he could take himself someplace with all his slaves where it was legal so he could continue to prosper. Now, we have no information on Clay Travis, but we do know about Sonny. So put her on the phone. Get Sonny. Let's talk to Sonny.
But people like Michael Eric Dyson, Dr. Dyson, and Stephen A. Well, most people, when they feel like somebody's in a position to be their mouthpiece and you're not being my mouthpiece. We have been teaching people how to grow online. It's been absolutely amazing. We have 3 people who have been able to reach monetization in less than 30 days. Growing YouTube channels, some from 0 people. We have one guy who had 2 subscribers before he started working with me. He started helping him. His views went up 4.8 million%. We're super excited. If anybody ever want to grow on YouTube, you reach out to me with the word coach. Then you're wrong. If you have another way of thinking, then obviously you haven't adapted. I'm the smartest guy. You need to take on what I'm saying. I'm letting you know that the way you're thinking right now is wrong, and you need to acknowledge this, and this. It's funny how we want to hold other people accountable, but we don't want to hold our own selves accountable. Like Candace Owens was talking about how education was really important to us as a people, Black people back in the day, especially since we were being killed and tortured if we were found reading anything, and they didn't want us to read. So when we got to a point where we could, learn and teach and read and just fully dive into education, we started to let everything drop. So now when you look at places that have um, majority Black cities and whatnot, the school systems they don't look like we put education first at all. The way we're raising our children, it doesn't seem like we put education first at all. But we want them to receive the same level jobs as everyone else because we started on first base and the white man started on third base and they were already almost around, or they started 400 years ahead of us and we need for them to help us out so badly, except The only way we will we're fine with it is if they let our athletes into their schools, and we're cool with that. If that makes any sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Actually, it's quite profound. The late great Walter Williams, and God rest his soul, I'm a huge fan, said about education something I find just fascinating, and I'm just not sure why more people don't pick this up. But he said four things must occur for education to happen. And that is that there must be somebody to wake the child up. There must be somebody to make sure the child goes to bed on time. There must be somebody to feed the child breakfast. There must be somebody to make sure that the child does their homework. And there must be someone to make sure that the child minds the teacher. And then he asked the question, who is capable of doing that? Is the mayor someone who can do that? Can the mayor wake a child up? Can the mayor wake all the children up? Can the city council give a breakfast? Can even the teacher make sure that a child does their homework? Who can do that? Parents. The reason that we have a bad education system is because we have an absence of parenting, and you cannot successfully educate in mass unparented children. And they keep sending unparented children to the schoolhouse and flooding the schoolhouse with tax dollars, and they walk away with a terrible result. The outcomes are disastrous. And people keep saying, well, it takes more money, or it takes more people who will teach DEI because that will give the kids self-esteem, or they'll teach. No, what gives a child self-esteem is knowing that there is somebody there raising them and demanding that they actually become something. That's what creates esteem, and guiding them in the
Preach.
discipline that creates accomplishments. So that is what is missing in the school system. So they can keep putting, God bless the teachers union, and y'all are getting all the money you can, good for you. And all of that money is going, I shouldn't say all, but a good portion of it is going absolutely to waste. Because if Walter Williams is correct, if those things are not in place, education will not occur. So stop asking these teachers and these systems and these teachers unions to educate unparented children. Somebody needs to come out and say they can't do it. And once again, you are finding an excuse. There's every excuse on earth, and they don't want to tell you that the real reason that they can't educate your children is because you all are not being great parents. And the reason they won't tell you that is because the bad parents are their voters.
Are their voters always will never let them go.
Mm-hmm.
Never. You do too much for me, Massa. Or you do too much. You've been too good to me. Wow. Way to break it down. My God.
When I say he, by extension, the school district and so on, is denying books about Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks. And the young lady who at 6 years old, Ruby Bridges, was attempting to get into school in New Orleans, in Louisiana. So the point is that you are denying the history that you have been victim of and that you have victimized others with. And you are denying the persistence of present practices. It's not simply a historic legacy. When we look at housing, when we look at education, when we look at healthcare, when we look at the distribution of wealth, when we look at the ability of people to move freely in society who are victimized by, say, police brutality, all of those indices suggest to us that in this day and age right now, there is the lethal legacy of past practices that need to be acknowledged. So you got to acknowledge them, not only for history's sake, but you got to acknowledge them so we can remedy the stuff that's going on right now.
It's interesting that you bring that up because their unwillingness, refusal, whatever words you want to use to defer to history, I don't find that to be accidental at all. No. I think by pointing it out, however, it would buffer their arguments, and I don't think they see that because let's play the role of devil's advocate here. I'll play that role. Feel free to educate me because that's why I've got you on, Dr. Dyson. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at the origin of affirmative action. We know, obviously, what transpired with the Supreme Court overturning things last year because of Title IX of the Civil Rights Act 1964, because Asian applicants had a lower likelihood of acceptance over other students. So once again, to me, that's a shining example of how affirmative action, which was originally intended to address the African American plight in this country,
you have likelihood Asians didn't have a lower likelihood. What they found is that I believe Harvard for sure, and I think Stanford and some other schools were actually taking in excess of 120 points off their score to lower their
Yeah.
score and then put them in the pool in the pool minus 120 and then look at them as applicants. So it wasn't that they had a less likelihood, it's that again, they engineered a score so that they would have a less likelihood.
Yeah, they were robbing them of their merit, their own merit that they
And they
worked hard for.
sued, and we all said that discrimination of any kind is bad. So they sued and they won.
Off of merit. And I mean, they're losing out on opportunities off of merit. I mean, their merit don't
Correct. They
don't
said you
matter.
scored too high.
Yeah, yeah, you're too smart. We have enough of you. Like
That's right. We did a head count and,
yeah,
and we were two over. So
yeah. We had 27. We meant to only have 25. Sorry.
exactly.
My God.